Many people are attracted to the impressive physical design of vintage camcorders from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. All of the buttons, switches, and manual controls provide a level of tactile, hands-on experience that you just don't get by recording video on a smartphone. And along with that comes the soft, grainy, lo-fi aesthetic of analog videotape formats like VHS, VHS-C, Video 8, and Hi 8. But not so desirable is the time, expense, and hassle of getting the footage from those tapes transferred into your computer, as well as the age-related failures that many of these old camcorders are suffering from, such as broken tape mechanisms, capacitors which leak and corrode the circuit boards, and old batteries which no longer hold a charge and for which modern replacements are no longer available. And when fully tested and working, camcorders like this Sony CCD TRV-87 can regularly sell for prices up to $200, leaving many people to look for more affordable and practical alternatives. And unfortunately, that's where scammers have come in, such as TOS, That One Street, which is heavily promoting their retro camcorder on social media, promising to give you retro aesthetic videos, such as the sample footage they're showing on Instagram. They're selling it for $84.99, and they claim it provides classic 2,1000' style color footage and a compact design. This camcorder is perfect for recreating nostalgic 2,1000' video footage. They say it captures nostalgic memories on VHS in HD quality. Stand out with vintage aesthetic videos. Then they claim it emulates 2000s VHS videos, soft, grainy, authentic, while showing sample footage that was clearly shot on Super 8 film, not videotape, because you can see the film grain and the bright spotlight they were using, which is necessary when shooting film indoors. And they say videos all stem with the type of camera you are using, and editing can only do so much. Using the retro camcorder helps you achieve that 2000 style videos with zero edits. Create soft, grainy, authentic videos that phone cameras and apps cannot recreate. And again, they show more footage that was clearly shot on, or at least digitally manipulated to look like Super 8 film, not VHS, even though they claim it'll give you the classic VHS style straight from the 2000s. And here they're even more specific, saying it's designed for capturing moments in the early 2000s aesthetic, no edits or apps. Next, they show a still from video that was recorded on a camcorder with infrared night vision, which this model does not have. And they say the camcorder captures in 1080p resolution, ensuring high-quality videos while also giving the retro aesthetic. It also takes pictures in 1080p resolution, also giving that retro aesthetic to every photo. And finally, they have 59 customer reviews, almost universally giving it a 5-star rating, with very real-looking reviews and photos. Definitely genuine people who actually bought and used this camcorder and left these reviews on this website, I'm sure. Well, it turns out this is a real camcorder that is being manufactured in China, but TOS is selling it for $84.99, which is a bit of a markup from the prices you can find it at elsewhere. Just how much of a markup? Well, on AliExpress, you can find the same thing for $18.45. It doesn't have any brand name, but it is the 2.7-inch screen 16x zoom digital camcorders, video camera, camcorder, full HD 1080p, 16 megapixel camera recorder, 270-degree rotation, and it is available in either black or red. And That One Street is not the only one selling this camcorder at highly inflated prices. There's also Omniverse Goods, which is selling it for $64.95 as the Omni Retro Camcorder with the same exact ad copy and sample images. And also Camoric was selling it as their Retro Camcorder Pro for $86.89, which still comes up in search results, but the website for it has been taken down. So here it is. The sticker says vintage camcorder video camera made in China. HD high definition video camera, digital camera, HD 1920 by 1080, maximum 16 megapixel and 16x digital zoom. And apparently you can also get it in pink. Big Clive would like that. Badly photoshopped HD 1080p on the picture of the camera itself. Includes accessory, battery, USB cable, charger, and user's manual. Supports SDHC cards up to 32 gigabytes. It's a fixed focus lens. It takes pictures all the way from VGA to 16 megapixel resolution. And I guess the videos are in AVI format at 1080p, 720p, or VGA resolution. But it does include a microphone and speaker, so that's good. It's not taking silent movies. Opening the box for the first time, please read the user manual carefully before use. And that's the user manual. Just, what is this, 2 pieces of paper? There's the camera itself. Also in the box is a charger and a USB cable, and that's it. The sticker on the side of the camcorder misleadingly says 32 gigabytes, making you think it has that much memory built in, but it does not, and no card is included. Those scammers do include a 32 gigabyte SD card, but there's no way the cost of that would justify how much more they're charging for it than what you can get this on AliExpress or Amazon. And there's just a blank space where a logo could go. And again, you think for how much more those scammers are charging, they would put their logo there, but they don't. On theirs, it's blank as well. Opening up the LCD, that's where the battery goes. It's one of these old Nokia style rechargeable batteries. And it has printed into the door Super Steady Shot, which is a Sony trademark. But I don't think this is any kind of image stabilization. And the whole thing feels incredibly light, so unlike some of these cheap camcorders that you see on Amazon, I don't think they're putting any kind of metal weight in this to make it heavier. And there you can see just how cheap the lens is, if you can even call it a lens, because it's just a piece of plastic. And that little pinhole in the middle is the actual lens. Everything else around it is just a decoration, because this does not have optical zoom, nor does it have any kind of autofocus. So you have to be at least, it says 1.2 meters away from anything you're recording. So that's what, about 4 or 5 feet away? Anything closer than that is going to be out of focus. So doing close-ups with this is out of the question. And if the styling of this camcorder looks familiar, that's because they were imitating this. The Canon FS series of camcorders, which were on the market from 2008 until 2011. As you can see, they clearly took a lot of inspiration from the Canon camcorder, although you can tell just how much cheaper it is. Yeah, they really, even that LCD door, the shape of that is almost identical. So I don't know if they got one of these and just made a mold of it and use that as the basis for this. But this is like twice as heavy. And the controls feel a lot nicer. This has a rather harsh click to it. Well, this is nicely damped. And the zoom control feels a lot better on the Canon than on this. And of course, this has a widescreen LCD and an automatic lens cover. Look at that. So it closes when you turn it off and opens when you turn it on. This doesn't come with any kind of lens cover, not even a lens cap. I charged the battery and read the owner's manual, and I'm glad I did because some of the controls on this are non-obvious. For example, I thought this big button on the back is the button for starting and stopping video recording, because that's what it is on the Canon this camcorder is based on, but that is actually just a button for selecting items in the menu. It's basically just an OK button. It does not control the recording. To start and stop recording video, you push the button that is the same one you push to take a photo. And that's what it is on the Canon. This is just for taking photos, while on this Imitation it's both for photos and videos. And here I have a 32GB SDHC card to use it with, which goes in upside down compared to the way the SD logo is. So that's the way it goes in. And now we can finally turn it on. Every time you turn it on, it defaults to still photo mode. If you want to record video, you have to push the mode button to change it to the video camera mode. That ended up catching me off guard when I spotted a rare Cadillac Alante car, and I pulled out the camcorder just in time to get some video of it taking off from a stoplight, only to discover that it was in still photo mode. So instead of a video, all I got of it was this photo. And there it is in VGA resolution. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio display. But look what happens when we switch the resolution, which you do by pushing up on this control pad. Now we're in 720p, but you notice the aspect ratio has not changed. It's still 4:3. And same thing with 1080p. The image looks exactly the same, still 4:3 aspect ratio on this display. So let's see a little sample of how those resolutions actually record. Actually, even before I get to that, here's the first bad sign. I tried to attach it to my tripod shoe, but whatever thread they're using for this tripod socket is not the standard size, because when I try to screw it in, and this works with every other camcorder I own, it just immediately cross threads. And if I try to go any further, it's just going to tear up that plastic thread in there. So they didn't even make the tripod thread correctly. Here is a sample of VGA 640x480 resolution video. And here is 720p 1280x720 resolution video. And finally, here is 1080p 1920x1080 resolution video. So yeah, even though the image looks okay on the camcorder itself, anything you record at those higher resolutions, 720p and 1080p, is just 4:3 video stretched out to fake widescreen, so the aspect ratio is not correct. If you're using a program like VLC Media Player, you can manually change the aspect ratio to 4:3, and then the image will look correct. But it's going to get awfully annoying to do that every time you play a video you record on this camcorder. And likewise, more advanced video editing programs also allow you to manually change the aspect ratio of a clip, although in this case there's no preset for what I need because they never expected footage to be this broken, so I have to manually type in 0.75, and now that looks correct. So unless you want to deal with the hassle of manually correcting the aspect ratio of every clip you record, you're going to have to record everything in VGA resolution, which is probably no big loss because I struggle to notice any real improvement at the higher resolutions. 720p is slightly less pixelated, but I don't notice any further improvement at 1080p, and it still looks worse than a good quality standard definition camcorder. This is a resolution test of VGA mode. This is a resolution test of 720p mode. And this is a resolution test of 1080p mode. And here is a resolution test of the standard definition Panasonic SDR H200 camcorder I've been using to record this video. Nonetheless, despite its obvious flaws, I did go ahead with recording some test footage on this camcorder. First, outdoors on a nice, bright, sunny day, which should be ideal conditions for recording video. These clips were all recorded in VGA mode. Well, that certainly did look grainy, just like they claimed it would, but not in a soft and fuzzy analog VHS tape kind of way, more in a harsh and unpleasant, digitally pixelated early 2000s flip phone camera kind of way. And it was obviously having a lot of trouble with the exposure, especially when I pointed it towards the sky. It was rapidly flashing between bright and dark, which is obviously extremely annoying and pretty much ruined the footage. It uses the very old and inefficient Motion JPEG codec, and the audio sampling rate is only 16 kHz, which is why it sounds so bad. It claims to record at 30 frames per second, but the footage it records has a lot of skipped and repeated frames, giving the motion a choppy and stuttery look. For a direct comparison, here's some footage that is actually being recorded to VHS tape. And here is video from the new camcorder being advertised as giving you retro VHS aesthetic. You may have noticed I didn't do any zooming during those clips, and that's because the zoom on this thing is pretty much worthless. Not only because it's digital zoom, but also because the zoom control only goes in big steps, and it's only a toggle. There's no way to do a continuous zoom. If you push it and hold it, it just zooms to the next step and stays there. So if you want to zoom anymore, you have to let go and move it again. So it works completely differently than the zoom control of a real camcorder, like the one I'm using now, where you can get a nice smooth zoom in and out at different speeds. You can go slow, you can go faster, and it's continuous. This, all you get is these big steps. That's 2x, 4x, 8x, and 16x digital zoom. In still photo mode, the image is thankfully much less pixelated than it is when recording video, but the dynamic range is abysmal. All the highlights get blown out, and all the dark portions of the image get crushed. I've taken photos using an all-plastic 35mm film camera, and even when scanned in at only 2 megapixels, they have much better sharpness, detail, and contrast. Speaking of which, if you're in the US, Walgreens stores are now selling 36 exposure rolls of Kodak 35mm film again. According to the EXIF data of the photos it takes, the actual manufacturer of this camera is HX Tech, and it seems to have a model number of HX330X, but I tried looking that up and I got absolutely nothing relevant. When it comes to recording videos indoors or at night, it better be under bright lighting, because this suffers from a severe lack of low light sensitivity, and the built-in LED spotlight hardly helps at all. And by the way, that's what this big button on the back that looks like a recording button but isn't is for. It turns on and off that spotlight. Under my bright studio lighting, the image looks fine, although the actual resolution is nowhere near the 1080p it claims to be. But under more normal indoor lighting, the image is considerably darker, and there's also some visible flicker, even though I set it to 60 Hz. and under low light, the image is very dark and grainy, and the dull bluish glow of the built-in LED doesn't help much. And in the same lighting condition, and with its built-in LED spotlight turned on, my Panasonic standard definition camcorder from 2007 does much better, even though it was actually criticized in reviews when it was new for having poor low light sensitivity compared to other camcorders of its time. So that shows you just how much worse this thing is. You may have noticed that in all the footage recorded by this camcorder, there is a date and time stamp at the bottom. You can go into the menu and turn it off, or set it to only show the date. There's another option here called Cyclic Record, which automatically splits up the video clips into 3, 5, or 10-minute segments. And when the card gets full, it automatically deletes the oldest clip and keeps recording. And there's another option in the settings menu here called Screensaver, which shuts off the LCD backlight after a couple minutes but keeps recording. And all those features reveal the true origin of the firmware and hardware in this camcorder as coming from a dash cam. So this is really nothing more than a cheap dash cam repackaged to look like a camcorder. You can also find the same internal components repackaged to look like a miniaturized 35mm SLR camera. They're calling it the Mini Retroflex Nostalgic Camera, and it's being sold using the same ad copy and fake sample footage. So pretty much any of these imitation nostalgic retro cameras and video cameras are all going to be the same as what I've shown in this video. So there really is nothing vintage about this so-called vintage camcorder, because it's being advertised as giving you retro 2000 style video footage. Well, I've been actually using a camcorder from the 2000s, and you can see and hear how much better its quality is, even though it's only 480i standard definition, while this is claiming to be 1080p high definition. So now you've learned why this type of camcorder is referred to as a scamcorder, because it's advertised based on lies and is designed to fool the unsuspecting consumer who has probably never owned any type of camcorder before into thinking it's comparable in performance to the name brand camcorders it's designed to look like, when it clearly is not.